Hey everyone, welcome to What Where's Watchin'. Today, I'll be talking about Spider-Man Far From Home. Don't worry, I'll keep spoilers till the end if you haven't seen the movie yet. Spider-Man Far From Home. This movie was actually more divisive than most people expected. See, there's a good portion of people that loved it, from its portrayal of Mysterio to its handling of Tony Stark's influence on Peter, and the handling of the relationship between Peter and MJ. But on the other hand, a lot of people were not a fan of how much this movie drastically departs from the comics. So, where do I fall? Well, I really liked it. I think it probably has the absolute best Spider-Man action and fight scenes we have ever seen put on screen. It does a really good job of showing just how strong and agile Spider-Man actually is. Older movies haven't really captured that as well as this one does. It also made me like MJ a whole lot, a character I wasn't a very big fan of after seeing Homecoming. Also, the film handled Mysterio spectacularly. He was probably one of my absolute favorite elements of the whole film. If you know about his character from the comics, or if you don't, you'll still love seeing how he's depicted in this movie, I promise. Jake Gyllenhaal does a great job, and Mysterio has some of the best looking CGI that we've gotten from any Marvel movie so far. Other than that, I can't touch on too much without getting into spoilers. I really did like this movie, and I think that accepting that this cinematic universe is separate from the comic or game universes that you might have grown up on is important. Otherwise, you're just going to be disappointed that your favorite stories aren't depicted 100% faithfully. Definitely go see this movie if you haven't, and make sure you stick around for the post-credit scenes. There's 2 of them, and they are very important. Okay, spoiler time. Wow, wow, wow. I loved the Mysterio reveal. I'm a huge nerd, so I already knew that he was a liar from the beginning of the movie, but if you're like me and you knew it was coming, the movie gives you a lot of these subtle little hints that are really fun to pick up on. And for other people that, didn't know who Mysterio was and they watched the movie, on their second viewing, they can pick up on them too. So that's really fun. Just to give you a couple examples, when we hear Beck talking about this is Earth 616, comic fans know that that's not true. Beck also knows the name of the classmate Peter almost killed using the Edith drone. And if you go back and watch the scene where Peter tells them about that, or Nick tells them about that, Peter never says his name is Brian, and Nick Fury also doesn't say his name is Brian. So the fact that Quentin Beck knew that, that was another indicator that, maybe he knows a little more than he's letting on. Plus, we see Peter web the drone that MJ finds, the one that he pulls off, and she finds that little hologram thing. All of these were little hints that were really cool to see when you knew what was coming later. Also, MJ was great in this movie. She wasn't the overly political complainer like she was in the first film. She was actually just an antisocial kind of nerd who was really smart and really funny. She was likable. They gave her some actual characterization. They explained why she acts the way that she does, and they still made her really, really likable. She's a good foil for Peter. I think the 2 of them kind of bounce off each other pretty well, and they're awkward teenagers, and they actually act like teenagers. You could go back and watch the Raimi films, or even the Amazing Spider-Man films. They don't act like teenagers. None of their versions of Peter do. So I really like how these teenagers are basically teenagers. I like that a lot. But MJ still had all these little verbal jabs that she made at people, so it's not like she changed from the first movie. We just get to see more of her, and that made me like her more. I'm sure a lot of other people did too. All of the side characters were great, by the way. Happy, Ned, Betty, May. I liked all of them, but I really liked Peter in this film. If we look back at the morals from the movies, Homecoming was all about choosing responsibility even when it's hard. This movie was all about believing in yourself when you don't think you're good enough. It's a different, new lesson, and I think it's important that we get those. Peter finally learned this lesson when he trusts that his spider sense, or his Peter tingle, will work, and he uses it to take down the drones and make his way, eyes closed, to finish off Beck. That's really good. That's great. And that, by the way, is an awesome action scene. It's probably my favorite action scene of the movie. It's just ridiculously cool. Not to mention, there was that scene when Mysterio attacks Peter in the construction site, when he has all of the holograms and Peter is sort of trapped in that world. all the illusions. There was the zombie Iron Man, the New York snow globe. That was insane. That was ripped straight from a comic book. It was incredible, and it was probably one of my favorite scenes in all the MCU. Just with how comic booky it was, how trippy and interesting. I mean, it was trippy enough that I'm like, I could see this in like a Doctor Strange movie. And as for those post-credit scenes, wow. Okay, so J. Jonah Jameson is back. He's played by J.K. Simmons, and he is not messing around this time. He got his pictures of Spider-Man, all right? I have no clue where the next film is going to handle, where it's going to go, how it's going to handle that big reveal. Is Peter going to be on the run? Is he going to have to get a lawyer? Is he... I don't know. Oh, and then the other post-credit scene, Nick Fury is in space. And the Nick Fury we saw in the whole movie, that was actually Talos, the Skrull. What is Nick Fury doing up in space? My guess is he's probably setting up Sword, which would be really cool if we get Sword in the MCU. If you don't know, Sword is like S.H.I.E.L.D., but in space. That's why I like their naming convention, Sword and S.H.I.E.L.D., the two things to protect the Earth. And, you know, I really like that scene that showed that he was actually Talos the whole time, because if you go back earlier in the movie, when Nick is talking to Peter, he says something that was kind of weird to me. Peter's like, well, why don't you call the other Avengers? Why not Thor or Doctor Strange or Captain Marvel? And Nick says about Captain Marvel, don't invoke her name. And I was like, what? That's a really weird thing for Nick Fury to say about Captain Marvel. They're friends. He doesn't, like, worship her or anything. But once you know that that was actually Talos, it makes so much more sense, because Talos is the guy whose whole race was saved by Carol. Like, of course, he idolizes her. Of course, he would say that about her when Peter said, hey, call Captain Marvel. So it made that line go from kind of weird to really cool. I really appreciated that little touch. All those little touches throughout the film were great. So, man, I am ready for more Marvel. That's all I really gotta say. I've been Beware. This is What Wears Watchin'. Stay frosty.